Once upon a time, getting this dish wrong was illegal. This is traditional New England clam chowder, and getting it right matters. Welcome to the Dalstrong Test Kitchen. I'm Souza, and this is Dalstrong Culinary Academy. Welcome back, everybody. Today we have Chef Gaetano Ferrara, celebrated culinary instructor. What are we doing today?
Today we're making a traditional New England clam chowder.
Fantastic. So what do we have?
We have some more basic ingredients here. They're staples in the recipe. Changes from different parts of Maine. So that's a bit of a change, and it's really hard to narrow down on what is the most traditional, but we're gonna go with what I've researched to be the most authentic.
Last time, you showed us how to elevate local ingredients into an amazing pork tenderloin dish. But today, we're headed to the American East Coast with one of the most historically debated recipes out there. So Chef, before we dive into this dish,
Good one.
help us understand why people are so passionate about their chowder.
There's a few reasons and a few variations of this dish, and we're gonna talk about the cream versus the tomato debate. So the cream-based version that we're gonna be making today is the New England style. The other one is the tomato-based version, and that's more from a Manhattan area. They call it Manhattan, but its origins actually come from Long Island, where Portuguese settlers came down and they made a tomato-based version of that dish. And there's also an illegal part to that story, but we can get to that later.
My jokes were that bad?
Absolutely that bad. So we're basically going to dial into the beginning of this dish. So it's going to start with a little bit of double smoked bacon, some beautiful white onion, and we're going to cook all that down with some celery. Once that's all nice and translucent, we're going to go ahead and steam open our clams. Now, these are whole clams. These are cherry stones. These are quite big. But one thing we'll do here at the beginning is we're going to just sprinkle a little bit of cornmeal onto these clams that are soaking in the water. And what's going to happen here is these cornmeals are going to sink to the bottom, and the clams are going to actually think it's sand, and they're going to start to pump it through their bodies. So that helps us get all the sand out of the actual clam itself, so we don't have gritty chowder.
That's a hack, folks. Use that at home.
We've rinsed our clams. We had them soaking in that cornmeal. That was helping purge all the sand out of them. So these are ready to go for the cooking process in the chowder when we get to that point.
Okay.
As for now, I'm going to go ahead and get my mise en place, all my prep ready.
I know we know what mise en place means, but for those of us who don't, would you mind explaining to us what it is?
Absolutely. So mise en place is basically the act of putting everything in its place. So before you start cooking, a lot of people have difficulties cooking in general because it's always chaotic and a bit messy, and they feel stress. Shouldn't be that way, because you should have all of your prep done so that you can just focus on your actual cooking. So it just means mise en place, everything in its place.
All right, Chef. Thanks for explaining that. So let's get started on our mise en place.
Absolutely. So first thing we're going to get started with is our bacon. So this is a beautiful double smoked bacon, and we're just going to come in and we're just going to pull the rind right off of this bacon. Okay. So a lot of people use regular bacon. That's completely fine. You can basically just chop that right down. It won't be an issue at all. I like the extra smokiness of a double smoked bacon myself. Okay. I'm just going to get this beautiful rind, and I'm going to get it going in that pan. And then we're just going to chop this down. When we're making a chowder, we basically want everything to fit on a spoon. Okay, so our pieces, everything that we're going to eat in our mouth should not be bigger than what fits on a spoon. We want to make sure we do this on quite a low heat. We don't want it to be too hot, because we want the fat to melt. We don't want to fry the pork. Okay.
Right. Okay.
So I got my temperature way down to low right now.
Oh,
Okay.
so Chef, have you actually been to the East Coast of the States, and have you had chowder there?
I have. I've been many times. Boston is one of my most favorite places. Great sports teams, great city cultures, amazing cuisine in general outside of chowder. We can see all that great fat in the bottom here. Yeah, we're going to basically cook down our onions and celery, which we have ready to go here, mise en place. Right off top.
Such a simple dish.
Very simple, very hearty, healthy as well.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish making my roux before I add my clams and my vegetable stock in. So I'm only gonna add about, we'll call it 1 tablespoon of flour, okay? Because I don't want it to be too thick. Right, and basically now we're gonna coat all these vegetables, okay? Now when you're doing this method right here, where you're essentially making the roux in a pot, this is technically called an aromatic roux because there's so many aromatics in the pan. So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna insert my clams. We're gonna make a nice little bed of veggies, and we're gonna kind of stand our clams up, just like that. a little bit of vegetable stock, and we can add a little bit of clam juice as well, just to keep the flavors as intense and true as possible. We'll put a lid right on there now, and we'll raise our temperature up a little bit. And basically, when those clams open up right away, that's when they're done. We don't want to overcook them. This is the problem people have with clams, and they get afraid of cooking them. They're not sure when they're cooked. Once any shellfish like that opens, sure, they're cooked. We don't want to overcook them or else they're going to get dried out and rubbery.
Right.
It's not really nice. Next up, I'm going to start getting my potatoes ready. So we can come here.
So while Chef Gaetano is finishing creating our flavor base, let me tell you about what he mentioned earlier. When making the wrong chowder could get you in trouble with the law. In 1939, Main Street Representative Cleveland Sleeper was so outraged by Manhattan's tomato-based version that he introduced a bill to make adding tomatoes to chowder illegal in Maine. The proposed punishment? Digging a barrel of clams at high tide, which is impossible. It sparked what newspapers called the Great Clam Chowder War. Sleeper even arranged a cook-off between a New England chef and a Philadelphia restaurant owner. The judges included the Maine governor and Ruth Wakefield, who invented the Toll House chocolate chip cookie.
I'm guessing New England won?
Of course. The newspapers declared Maine chowder wins over tomato type. One food writer called Manhattan chowder a terrible pink mixture and wrote that tomatoes and clams have no more affinity than ice cream and horseradish.
So as we can see here, our clams are starting to open. Ooh. So as they open, I want to just remove them. Okay. Now, if by chance you get a clam that doesn't open, just discard it. That means it's dead and it's no good. Now, all clams are different. They don't all open at the same time, right? Because they're all different sizes. The mussels are different sizes. So yeah, basically once they open, you need to pull them out accordingly. Okay, so we have our clams out and cooling slightly. Now we're gonna go ahead and add our potatoes into this, okay? All right, potatoes go in. So now we're here with our clams, okay? As you can see, these are nice big clams. You can just pull these right out, okay?
So these are already fully cooked and they literally just opened up.
That's right.
So let's talk about the crackers.
You can use any crispy cracker, bread, crouton, whatever you have around. So, you know, for me, you can use a variation of something like a cream cracker, or we can even use a crostini. This is great to have around, you know, just toasted bread that you can slice thin, bake in the oven. So here we have our clams. As you can see, they're actually quite big. A lot of clams you're gonna get at the store, if they're canned, are probably gonna be no bigger than that. They're all quite small, okay? So we're using these nice big cherry stones here because these are more indicative of what a traditional chowder would have. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this up into similar sized pieces that we discussed.
And again, they're already cooked, so
Fully cooked, ready to go. And now we just wanna make sure that they don't overcook. So we're gonna add these in just at the last moment because we wanna make sure they're nice and tender. We don't wanna be chewing on clams all night here.
So again, process is so important. While the potatoes are finishing cooking, we finish up with the clams, wait a little bit, add them in at the very, very end.
Absolutely. The chowder is never waiting for our next step. We're waiting for the chowder to add our next move.
So chef, let's talk about the price of these clams. How much did this amount of clams cost?
Well, these ones here were about $20 a pound. So realistically speaking, if I went down to the wharf and bought them straight off the boats, it would be significantly cheaper. I bought these from a very high-end fishmonger, so they were a little more expensive. Okay, so now we're ready for our final phase of completing our chowder. Okay, as we can all see here, our potatoes are nicely cooked. They're slightly thickening this beautiful broth that we have, okay?
Yeah.
Now, we want to remember one thing when we're making a chowder. We don't want it too liquidy. So essentially, we want to be able to see our vegetables through the liquid. This way here, we know that we have still room to add our cream without it being too liquidy.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'm gonna add my clams right back in and all their great juices. And now I'm gonna finish it with some heavy cream. So here we can see, as we've noticed throughout this entire video, we have not added any salt to our dish. So I'm gonna taste it one last time just to make sure my seasoning's where it needs to be. And we'll go from there. So all the salt has come from the bacon and come from the clams. I wouldn't add anything to this, maybe just some more pepper. Now, traditionally, this doesn't get any herbs. I love it with a little bit of freshly chopped dill myself.
Yeah.
And I've seen it in many places when I have visited the area.
Right.
Where there's, some people put dill, some people put parsley, some people may be fancy trying to put some basil. So I have some fresh dill here that I'm gonna just chop and throw in there. And it just gives it a little bit of freshness.
Sure, I got it.
And it works really, really well with the actual flavor of the clams itself. We all know that dill and seafood go very, very good together. It adds a beautiful color to it as well.
Yeah.
And it really opens up with aromatics that way, okay? And that's kind of the texture we're looking for, okay? Not too thick, not too thin. Still kind of holds the spoon.
Right.
Okay? That's kind of what we're looking for, okay?
Okay.
We don't want it too gluey. We don't want our spoon to stand up in there, okay?
Personally, I can't imagine adding tomato to a chowder. After looking at this and smelling it, why would you do it any other way?
I definitely wouldn't. I prefer it this way, but I mean, it's all relative to where you're located and kind of the history of that region. So,
I mean, you can still be a self-respecting New Yorker and love New England clam chowder. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, everybody. So there you have it. Authentic New England clam chowder with centuries of tradition behind it. And I don't know about you, but I gotta have a bite. Jesus Christ, that's f***ing good, chef. Thank you so much.
and now you're under arrest.
Can I have another bite before you take me in?
We go for it. Okay.
Thanks. Are you Team New England or Team Manhattan? Let us know in the comments below. What other regional classics should Chef Gaetano tackle next? Don't forget to like this video if you learned something new. Subscribe for more culinary adventures and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Until next time, catch you later.